The more I look at Casio, the more I appreciate them as a brand. And I've come to realize that over the last 5.5 years I've done this channel, that I really haven't paid much attention to the budget side of Casio. I've looked at the Royale, but that was because it was a cult classic. But that's about it. And I've decided that's something I really want to change. So when I heard there was a new $30 budget king in Casio's lineup, that this watch, the WS-1600, was the new It Casio, I thought it'd be a great place to start. And it doesn't hurt that it's also a member of the Royale family. Like all Casios, the 1600 is a functional powerhouse. It's just that this one has an emphasis on readability and affordability. But to better understand it, and whether or not it's something you'd be interested in, you really need to know where it sits in Casio's lineup. The short version is that this is an updated, refreshed version of the AE1300, which in turn is a sister watch of the Casio Royale, the AE1200. And if you're already fully versed in Casio and you know what that meant, you can skip ahead. But if that sounded like complete gibberish, let me explain. The AE1200, which I happen to have on my wrist, is also known as the Casio Royale. This watch is a cult classic. People love it. And not just for its affordable functionality, but that it also reminds them of a watch Roger Moore wore in Octopussy. So there's sort of this roundabout James Bond connection. That's never a bad thing. Now the Royale also has a sister watch, the AE1300. They both share the same case and strap, and they also have a huge overlap in terms of features. But where the Royale is more focused on being a world timer, the 1300 is more focused on being a timer. And it's particularly useful if you're going to use it to time sporting events as, say, a referee. So this new watch, the WS-1600, has a lot of those same features. And since it also shares the same case, you can think of it as a refresh of the 1300. And I'll talk more about it later, but sharing the same strap and the same case is a really cool thing. Just because there's an active Royale modding community. So there are a lot of mods you can follow, as well as aftermarket parts you can add on to this if you want. In terms of specs, this one is 39.5mm wide, not counting the buttons. With those, it's more like 44.5, and it's overall pretty square with a lug-to-lug of 45mm. The total thickness is just under 13mm, you have 100 meters of water resistance, a total weight of 38 grams, which is really nothing, as well as an acrylic crystal, and that infamous 10-year battery life, which for some reason Casio keeps reminding us of. And last but not least, it also has 18mm lugs. If you look closely at the stock strap, you'll see that it starts off at 18 before quickly flaring out to meet the shape of the case. So you can use any 18mm strap here, and I've tried it with other Royales, but I think it looks really funny. Luckily though, there are a few different companies that now make straps just for the Royale. One's made of better materials that still seem to match the same shape as a stock strap. And while I really don't want to go into a full tutorial, let me give you a quick rundown of the features here. Now on the main screen, you have a very large display for the day and date, as well as this whole actiony thing going on at the top, where you have these bars that are filling up and emptying as time progresses. The very top one adds a bar every second, filling up at 10 seconds, which then causes the bottom bar to add a segment, filling up at a minute, which then goes over to the right at that rounded area, and for some reason that fills up every 30 seconds. It's really cool to watch, and I like that here it just doesn't fill up and restart, it kind of fills up and then empties up. Sounds dumb, but it's something I do like here. So it's cool, but for the most part, it's just kind of flare. It's not really going to help you read the time at all. And of course, we can't forget the backlight, which is orange. And better to see when it's completely dark. The next mode is a stopwatch mode, but unlike many that you're used to, there's going to be this odd running timer down at the bottom, where even when you start the main stopwatch, that keeps going. Of which you can't actually set a specific time for, where it'll beep once that's done, in addition to the stopwatch still going. Or you can just let it go continuously. After that, you have the preset timer, and here you're not going to be able to set what time you want to track, you're just using presets, that's why it's a preset timer. And they seem to adjust by about 5 minutes for the most part, for whatever you want to actually track. After that, you have an interval timer, which you can set exactly what you want to track. but it also has multiple intervals that you can set, where once the one timer's done, it'll switch to the next one and switch to the next one until it gets to the end. So as you can see, there's more advanced functionality when it comes to their timers versus just a regular watch. Now after that, you got a world timer, and the Royale has this as well. But there, I think it is a little bit more enhanced and easier to use. Here at the very top, it shows your current home time, and then at the bottom, it shows the time for whatever city you select. And you can change the city just by using the buttons at the right, and you get the 3 initial abbreviation for whatever the city is. And after that, you kind of got a standard alarm that you can set to whatever you want. And then back to the home screen. So, like I said, there's a lot of functionality here with regard to timing, to the point that a lot of people refer to this as a referee timer setup. And in some ways, this is both good and bad. I mean, extra functionality is always great, but if it's a little overly complicated, it can get a little confusing. And with this one, if you're actually going to want to use those features, you might need the occasional refresher on how to set them up. The only other negative with this one is going to be the obvious one, and that's that it is pretty cheaply made. Which honestly really isn't that much of a negative considering the price. I mean, it is a $20 to $30 watch, so you gotta keep your expectations in check. And it is what it is. And for some, that's exactly why they're buying it, because it's a watch you don't need to worry about. With the plastic case and polymer crystals, it's only a matter of time before these are gonna get scratched up. Yet, at 30 bucks, it's pretty easy to replace. And the same goes for when you're traveling. The World Time feature is great for that. And if you find yourself somewhere where you don't really feel comfortable wearing a more expensive watch, this is perfect for that. Even if someone does try to steal it, they're gonna get a scratched up Casio. For me, the only place where this cheapness really becomes an issue is with the strap. It's thin, it's plastic, and it feels exactly like that. It's okay, and it is still comfortable to wear, but I'd rather have a nice leather or rubber strap on my wrist. But really, that's the only downsides to this one. The rest of it is all good, at least for an inexpensive digital. With a watch like this, it's all about being straightforward and having a rather large, easy to read display, while still being comfortable and easy to wear throughout the day. And that's exactly what this is. And it has it while still having a cool and interesting design, which you can say about the entire Royale family, and that's partly why people love them. Now, even with the stock strap, as much as I don't like it, I gotta admit it's still very comfortable, and especially as lightweight as this watch is. This is like wearing nothing. And I think that and the legibility of the large time and date is a big reason why someone would want to buy it. Now, compared to the 1200, and let me take it off and hold them next to each other so you can kind of see side by side. But compared to it, it has a much larger display for the day and date, so it's much easier to read. And really, that is the most important aspect of a watch. And I think that does give the 1600 a distinct advantage of the regular Royale. However, I still think the Royale is a much cooler looking watch, and I think the enhanced world timer feature here would be much more useful for people than the enhanced timer features of the 1600. So for me, I'm still gonna go with the regular Royale. But for others, might not be as easy a choice. Bottom line, great $30 watch and a good addition to the Royale family. Yet, I wouldn't exactly call this the next it Casio. I don't think it's an easy decision between this and some of the other budget Casios, especially the regular Royale. Although there's one more really good thing about this watch that I still need to mention, and that's that its ability to use most of the regular Royale straps and mods that are out there, which is important if you like everything about this except just how cheap the watch feels. At that point, you can throw it into a nicer case with sapphire. As soon as I got the 1600, I reached out to SKX Mod just to ask them if their case and bracelet modification would work for the 1600, which it does. Yet one thing kind of led to another, and they wound up sending me this whole pile of stuff to play with. So keep an eye out for that video. It's probably going to be next month because there's a lot to play with here. And I'm not just going to be modding this one, but I'm actually going to be doing 4 or 5 complete builds, and that includes modules which SKX Mod has customized. But in the meantime, let me know what you think about the 1600 down below. Or if you can think of another great budget Casio that I should look at, mention that as well. And as always, you guys know what to do down below. Like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, something. I'm Shane, this is Relative Time, and I'll see you next time.